and get going with what's going on in Virginia. So Jim gave a great introduction of sort of a national perspective, but we're really going to hear from what's going on at the state level already in Virginia, why breakfast is so important, discussing some of the data, and share successes and challenges with implementing breakfast in the classroom. So since we already kind of got introductions with everyone this morning, we'll just sort of jump right into it. But we'll spend probably 5 to 10 minutes with each speaker sharing their perspective on breakfast in the classroom in Virginia and breakfast in general. And then in terms of, so that leaves plenty of time for Q&A. So you might notice some note cards in the middle of your table there. So as our panelists are walking through and you come up with questions, I have a few to get us started for the Q&A, but if you want to share those with Yang and Annalise, we'll kind of mill about collecting questions from people. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to LaTonya.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
No.
What about now? Is this better? Okay, wonderful. So again, I'm LaTonya Reed, and I mentioned to you all that I am the director of Virginia Hunger Solutions. Virginia Hunger Solutions is an anti-hunger initiative that is done in partnership with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, based here in Richmond, and the Food Research and Action Center, which has an office in DC, but their reach is nationwide. The Virginia Poverty Law Center is a statewide group, and we have been operating since 1978. When we opened our doors in 1978, we were exclusively an anti-hunger shop. One of the primary goals was to make sure that state and federal policy worked for low-income families, especially children, to ensure that people had access to quality food, to healthy food, and to make sure that low-income people had an opportunity to bolster their health. Well, over time, our reach expanded. We began to operate in many other areas that are of interest to low-income families. And as we began to expand, we started to do a little bit less anti-hunger work. So our anti-hunger work focused primarily on the food stamps program. But the work that we did in that area was pretty robust. Well, as of November of 2013, we had an opportunity to work with FRAC and to redouble our efforts on our anti-hunger work, to focus on the SNAP program, but also to focus on school breakfast and school lunch. And I am really excited to have an opportunity to work in those areas because there's such an opportunity to make sure that low-income families, low-income children in particular, get access to the nutritious foods that they need. Sometimes when it comes to public policy work, advocates have to sit down, have to do a lot of research, and figure out what new laws need to be proposed, what new regulations need to be proposed, what lawsuits need to be brought in order to effectuate change. But in the area of school breakfast, there's already code on the books. There is a federal framework that's already in place, but we need to do a better job with implementation. So this morning, you all heard Jim say that in Virginia, about half of the students who participate in the school lunch program participate in the school breakfast program. And when we say half of the students, we're talking about low-income students, students who qualify for either free or reduced price meals. And you also heard Jim say that if that number increased to 70 out of 100, we could reach quite a few more children. And you pull those numbers from the Food Research and Action Center's scorecard. I am a big fan of this scorecard. Every year, FRAC looks at data from the USDA, data that comes from each state's Department of Education, and really does an assessment on how well states are doing with school breakfast. Well, in Virginia, at this point, as of the 2012-2013 school year, we have a lot of room for improvement. We're in the middle of the pack. Our rank is 20th for low-income student participation in the school breakfast program. We have, more specifically, I said half, but FRAC has estimated that we have 51.3 children who are receiving free or reduced price breakfast for every 100 that are receiving the lunches that I mentioned a minute ago. And going back to what happens if we increase that number to 70, we would end up reaching an additional 78,369 low-income students statewide. I think that number is a big incentive for us to do what we can in our school divisions to make sure that more children are receiving access to school breakfast. And then the bonus, the benefit, the additional benefit of us making sure that more low-income children have access to school breakfast is that we'll get more funding from the federal government. No one sitting on this panel today wants any school division to incur financial hardship in order to expand your school breakfast program, in order to do the good work of making sure that more low-income students have access to breakfast. We're saying we can do this work and there are resources available for us to do it. So if we increase the number to 70 out of every 100 students, we receive an extra $19.9 million from USDA. So there really isn't much of a downside to doing the work to expand school breakfast in your school divisions. There may be some technical adjustments that you have to make, but the beauty is that other states have experience with expanding their school breakfast programs. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have experts here today who will talk about best practices. It really and truly is a win-win to focus on expanding your school breakfast programs. So that's all I have for you for now. And I'll pass it on to